So after 2 days crossing the Drake, we finally arrived the next morning here. If you're wondering where this is, it's called Michelson Harbour. So after breakfast that morning, we put on our copious amounts of cold weather gear and climbed into Zodiacs and headed ashore for the first time. We did 2 trips ashore a day for the next 5 days, so a total of 10 trips. I'm going to point out some of the highlights. Day 2 we visited Nico Harbour for our first stop. And I woke up that morning to the sight of this outside my cabin window. If you're wondering about the bluish glow to some of the chunks of ice, apparently it's caused by pockets of air which get trapped inside the ice when it's freezing. So once ashore that morning, I found a penguin highway and laid down in the ice and snow next to it for a couple of hours to get some nice close-up shots of penguins as they walked by. I should point out that the penguins have absolutely no fear of humans because they don't have any natural land predators in Antarctica. They did give me some rather strange looks though as they walked by. I think the closest I got to a penguin would have been about 30 centimetres. For those Americans watching, that's around about 12 inches. Our second trip ashore that same day, day 2, was to Brown Station. which was named after Admiral Brown, who was an Irishman who, through some very strange circumstances, went on to become a famous admiral in the Argentinian Navy. About a week after this, I actually saw his grave in Buenos Aires. You'll have to forgive me for these next two shots. They're not very good, but in my defence, I did take them from a moving zodiac. But the reason why I'm including them is because if you look very closely, you can see another zodiac in the distance. This should give you some sense of scale. So later that same day, we had what, in my opinion, would have been the highlight of the trip, which was going through the Lemaire Channel. On our very last day in Antarctica, we travelled back through the South Shetland Islands and stopped off at Deception Island. If you're wondering why it's called Deception Island, it's because it has an inner bay, but that bay is only accessible through a narrow channel. And that channel can only be seen if you're looking at it dead on. So if you look at it from any other angle, it just looks like a normal island. This rather large rock at the entrance to the bay is called Neptune's Bellows. I have some video of it at the end, which you might find interesting. When we entered the inner bay, we were lucky enough to find that it was still iced over from winter, so we rammed the ship through the ice and lowered the gangplank and went for a walk. Deception Island is actually the caldera of an active volcano. From memory, the last eruption was sometime in the 80s. Well guys, hopefully you enjoyed my little self-indulgence over the last 3 episodes. Don't worry, next episode we'll be going back to discussing feminism most likely and gender issues. But before I go, I guess I better answer Doom Rule's question. So his question is, Antarctica or Australia? Well, if you're asking where I prefer to live, I'm quite happy living here. Although I'd be more than happy to visit Antarctica again. And to be honest, If I had the cash, and trust me, it's not cheap. If I had the cash, I'd even go as far as to say I wouldn't mind going there every year for a holiday. It's well worth it. It's an amazing place, and yeah, it's easily one of my favourite places on the planet. But I wouldn't want to live there.